Welcome to another seminar presented to you by Excellence in Education, Dr. Homeschool, that's me, Marty Forte. And today we would like to introduce you to homeschooling. More and more people are becoming vastly interested in the exciting world of homeschooling. And of course, they wonder, can I really do it? Well, through the next hour or so, I would like to be talking to you about the whole area of homeschooling that will make your knowledge of homeschooling far more complete. Now, we will be covering many different subjects, including what is homeschooling, why am I homeschooling, can I do it, what are the legal options in California, how do I take my child out of school? What are learning styles? How do I choose a curriculum? How do I find a support group or other help? A little Homeschool Legal Defense Association promo. Do homeschoolers actually go to college? What a concept. And what about special needs children? Well, let's get into why homeschool. There are several reasons that we homeschool. Of course, number one, the inequality of education. A lot of people fear that the public school system or the classroom education system, whether it's private or public, doesn't quite come up to the quality of education they want for their children. And it is very important for many parents that their kids are prepared for life. So, quality of education becomes a rather high level of concern for parents, and therefore looking at homeschooling is a very good idea. Let's talk about faith-based and family values. There are just a tremendous number of people that have their kids in school that do not approve of the agendas or the things being taught in the classroom environment. And so the faith-based community has been always a very large portion of the homeschool population, even though it's becoming a smaller portion, but still very influential. And family values. We're talking about faith-based reasons, cultural reasons. Just, is my child ready for this level of discussion on any number of subjects? So faith-based family values, critically important. Another one that's becoming very, very popular among people would be security, health, and safety. It's amazing how fearful people can be of the school system. After a school shooting, we get lots of new interest. But we're also looking at just the numbers of people in the classroom, safety for the children, whether it be from external forces or internal things like bullying or other child-on-child or teacher-on-child issues. So again, security, as you know, is very important for almost everyone in their hierarchy of needs. Then we also have professional reasons. And when I talk about professional reasons, I'm talking about the kids who are either in professional or semi-pro sports. I'm talking about the great families that we have here at EIE Academy that are in the entertainment industry. And a lot of times I need to be working during school hours. So with homeschooling, it really frees up the professional student that's involved in sports or entertainment industry to be more flexible and really become more employable. So again, these are some of the top quality reasons of why different families want to homeschool. Now, here comes the real important question, and that is, am I qualified to homeschool? And if you can answer yes to the following two questions, you will qualify. The first question is going to be, do you love your children? And that's got to be a deep reason. And most people really, truly love their children. And then second of all, is your body temperature around 98.6 degrees? Now, if you can say yes to both of those, wow, you're qualified. I mean, imagine, you love and you're alive, therefore you qualify. Now, here's a bonus point. I'm coming from California now, remember that, but I promise you, you cannot do worse than the state of California in providing your child a great education. California actually is in the upper 2 or 3 states in the union that have the highest expenditures on dollars per student. But right now, this is 2020, and we're talking about California rates around number 43 in the United States as far as educational success. This really provides us with a very interesting statistic. And believe me, we have parents coming all the time. I don't know if I can homeschool. Am I qualified? And I tell you what, it does happen. It's amazing how qualified homeschoolers are. A little sidebar. I had a graduation here probably about 8 or 9 years ago. And my graduation ceremony, I had my oldest and my youngest student ever to graduate. And my youngest student to graduate, this little guy was about 13 years old or 14. And he was graduating with his high school diploma and his AA degree from community college. And that's just amazing. Age 14, and he's already got half his college career put in the bag. Now, my oldest graduate was on the stage at the same time. And this was a lady, a mom, who came to me and said, Marty, I really want to have my high school diploma. I don't have it. Can you help me? So I said, yeah, let's go through the paces. Let's get you that thing. And there she was, about a 40-year-old mom. And guess what? She was the mother of the youngest graduate there. So you cannot tell me that a lack of education, a lack of diplomas, a lack of certification disqualifies you from homeschooling, because you could really do it. Alrighty, let's get into the legal options for homeschooling in California. And this is important. I'm going to split it up into 2 different arenas. One is the public options. Now, the public school independent study programs, otherwise known as ISPs, they are part of the district. And you will be under the supervision of a credentialed teacher. They provide the materials, and you'll be following the curriculum established for that particular grade by that particular school district. And then there's charter schools. Now, charter schools are pretty much a new idea for the last 10 years within the homeschool community, and they are part of the public sector, and they operate within the district or within a county. And what they do is they have now established independent study programs via the charter schools, where you join the charter, and they provide you with X number of dollars that you can use for books, materials, and activities. Now, activities can include, up until now, things like ballet lessons, gymnastics lessons, music lessons, or you can buy books and materials. This is all done through a purchase order process. It doesn't mean you get $1,500, $2,000 in cash in your hand. No, you go through a PO system, and then that PO has to be approved. The charters will approve each and every vendor that you can purchase items from or services. And now, the charter school also is supervised by a credentialed teacher. You must meet with that supervising teacher every 20 days. There's no cost to you, and the benefits are that you're going to be part of a WASC accredited organization. You're going to be staying with pretty much the scope and sequence of a public classroom school, and you're accountable to the district or to the county. The downside is there's mandatory testing. 95% of the charters, I believe, require immunizations. If you're a non-VACer, then that might be a challenge for you. You'll be meeting with someone every 20 days, which can be a negative or a positive, depends how you look at it. But those are your public options. Let's mosey over to the private options. And you have 2 ways to go. And that's the private satellite program, and that is who we are. And what it is, it's similar to a charter, but the difference is, instead of the charter paying you money to be part of it, you pay a tuition to be part of a private satellite program. Now, there are all kinds of different programs out there. Their basic requirements are that you must have on record the enrollment form, health immunization records, course of study, teacher qualification form, attendance records, and a grade record. That's the minimum requirement to operate a PSP within the state of California. Now, after that, there are so many different kinds and personalities out there that if you choose to go with the PSP, really interview that particular organization to be sure that you qualify for one, because many of them have requirements like you must belong to this church or you must belong to this kind of attitude, if you would. And we'll get into that later on. But find out what they offer as well. Some of the more full service ones offer things like field trips, park days, even classes. There's a lot of opportunities now, and it's up to you to decide which one meets your requirements and meets their requirements. And if you can all get together, wow, it becomes a good program. Now, the final option you have is to file a private school affidavit. Now that is really, really the most independent form of homeschooling that you can operate under. The private school affidavit is a document that you file every October with the state of California, and you send it up to Sacramento. Now, if you are a school with 5 or more students, then you would be listed in the private school directory. If you're under 5 students, you're just providing them with information. The information's pretty basic, your name, address, who the teacher is, who's the principal. Basically, that's dad's the principal, mom's the teacher, your location, things of that nature. Very easy to do, doesn't cost you a single penny. So it all depends now on between the public and the private options. And things like how long do you want to homeschool, why you're homeschooling, may determine if you go with the public option or with the private option. My recommendation is if you're going to homeschool for only 1, 2, or 3 years, you might stay with the public option via probably the charter schools. Because then when you transition your child back into the public school classroom, because they're WASC accredited and they're staying with the scope and sequence, then it's much nicer transition back. Now, if you're going to homeschool for the long term, let's say all the way through high school, then I would probably say the private option provides you more freedom and much more flexibility. And we can get into that a little bit later on. Okay, we are now on our journey because you made the decision to homeschool to do the first step. So let's talk about that. Your first step is removing your child from a school. Now, if you're enrolled with a legitimate school, now review the last set of slides we did because we talked about the public and the private options. Well, now you can enroll with a real homeschool program, whether it be through private or private. Okay, now in order to withdraw your child, your next step is to inform the previous school that you are enrolling your child in another school. It is a violation of the Ed Code to be enrolled in 2 schools at the same time. You got to withdraw from the previous school. Now, the new school will request the records from the previous school. The new school is either your own through the PSA or the charter school or the PSP. That's going to be the new school. And the old school will be, of course, the school that you're withdrawing from. If you're filing a PSA, be sure to request the records on official school stationery. And that is so simple to create. You just go to your computer, you go to Word, or if you're doing a Mac, you go to their program that's a Word equivalent. And it's real simple. You put this nice little official name of your school, address, and you request the record from the previous school. Now, what you want to do is be sure to be very pleasant with any contact with the previous school that you're withdrawing from. The law's on your side, and that's so important. You got to understand that. The law is on your side, especially here in California, and you must be confident on your interaction with the school. Sometimes they will put pressure on you to stay, or even they will even do this. They'll tell you, you are breaking the law. And you just cannot do this. Well, guess what? The law is on your side, and you are forming a legitimate school, and you have nothing to worry about. Sometimes it can be better to make the transition to homeschooling through a PSP, since they are generally, if they have more than 5 students, registered as a private school in the state directory, which can make life a whole lot easier for you. Okay, let's talk about teaching your children. You go, what? Teach my children? I can't do that. Well, we already talked about that. You can. Remember my mom and son at my graduation, a non-high school graduate mother, providing the means and the environment for him to have his diploma from junior college. At the same time, he got his high school diploma at age 13 or 14. Yes, you can do it. Don't forget that. You can do it. So let's talk about teaching your children. Now, for one, it is much simpler than you realize. It's just amazing how we get so fearful of new things that you just got to just go say, I can do this, I can do this. And just realize it is simple. The ultimate goal is to train your children to teach themselves to be able to love learning. What a gift of that. Just imagine if your child can love to learn for their whole entire life. And if they love learning, they can find out facts and they can teach themselves throughout their whole life. What an exciting adventure that is. One of the benefits of properly homeschooling is the creation of this wonderful and friendly, strong bond between you and your children. And you cannot discount that benefit. Again, when you do that, when you have that wonderful creation of a strong and friendly bond, that creates that security that you need, that every person needs in order to do anything in life. That sense of security must be fulfilled. And what a better way than to train your kids to teach themselves and also to create that security bond through that friendly and strong relationship between you and the kids. Then try to follow what we call the 40-60 rule. 40% should be directed to academics and 60% to discovery. And you're going, what do you mean by discovery? I mean, let the kids explore. Let them find out things that they want to learn about. Because if you can do that, wowee, you're not going to get boggled down in trying to do 100% academics. What happen is through, and this gets into the Charlotte Mason approach a little bit, that if you can find 60% of your day in order for the kids to explore, to experiment, to be exposed to different types of activities. This is where field trips come in. This is where hobbies come in. This is where even volunteering at a particular organization or doing apprenticeships when the kids are, let's say, high school age, that they can actually go find a job, maybe in their area of interest. So that's all about exploration. And we don't have to get boggled down in the tray of hardcore book academics, workbooks, and lecture. So just enjoy the trip and follow that 40-60 rule, and I guarantee you, you're going to be a happy family, and you're going to really, really enjoy the homeschool process. Well, welcome back to the 4 stages of learning. And you're asking yourself, what is the 4 stages of learning? And why is that important for me? Well, the importance part is very simple. There are 4 different distinct stages on how a person learns. And you can look at it more of how well they know something. What level of awareness do they have of the subject? In most cases, with the classroom environment, we figure that most kids get to level 2, level 3. But our real objective as homeschoolers is that if we can achieve level 4, then we have hit pay dirt. This is the ring you want to grab on that merry-go-round. Because if you get to level 4, you really know it. So let's get into the different levels and how important they are. The first level is what we call introduction or acquaintance. And this is when you may bring up a concept to a child or a person. It doesn't have to be a child, but when a person has heard of it once or twice, they've been introduced, let's say a concept of quantitative analysis. If you've never heard of it, but then in some discussion with another person, they bring up quantitative analysis, now you've heard it. You may not understand it, but you've heard it. This usually entails multiple exposures. You have to hear it a couple of times before you really go, oh yeah, I've heard of it. I'm acquainted with it. But now the next level, which is important, is do you recognize? The student knows it when he sees it. That is where a lot of kids get to in the classroom environment, and maybe level 3. But in most cases, for instance, if you're taking a test and you get to a multiple choice test, this becomes the ideal way of determining how well the child knows this recognition phase. So multiple choice tests assess this level of knowledge. Now, that's great, but still doesn't give you a real working knowledge. That's why we want to get into the recall portion of the 4 levels. This is when the student can retrieve from memory with some effort. Now, this is going to be, going back to the academic examples, the fill-in-the-blank tests assess this level of knowledge. So you're taking your test and you know, oh yeah, blah, 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 blank, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what that blank is. Now, you don't always recall right away, but with some effort, you will definitely understand it. Then we get to that golden ring, and that is the fluency. Now, this is where the subject is committed to long-term memory, and the student knows it well enough to explain it or teach it to someone else. And ladies and gentlemen, parents, moms and dads, I really feel that with the homeschool programs that you can participate in, that this should be the objective for your children in all subjects you teach them, because that's going to be the level of mastery. We at EIE, we really do not care how long you've been doing something. We're all about mastery, and mastery is going to be that your child has achieved the fluency level of the 4 stages of learning. Again, it's a fairly simple concept, but if you can just grab that and consume it and really work with that with the objective of becoming a teacher that provides a level of fluency to your children, they can go anywhere they want in the world, and that's going to be exciting. Alrighty, let's go on to our next level of how to homeschool. Well, welcome back again. Now, what I want to do is spend some time on what I consider to be one of the most important subjects for you to understand to make you into the ultimate homeschool parent, and that is learning styles. Now, what's important is that if I were to ask the average person what your learning style is, they'll go, oh, I'm visual, I'm kinesthetic, whatever, auditory. And that is what they say. They think that's what learning styles is all about. But guess what? That is not necessarily true. And you're going to learn in a few more minutes on how many more components are part of determining a child's learning style. Now, why do we want to know about learning styles? Very simple. Understanding learning styles is the key to success in teaching your child anything. If you want to have a real good, successful learning success, then understanding learning styles will be immensely important. Not only is it important to understand your child's learning style, but it's critical to have an intimate understanding of your own learning style. And why is that? Because it's very simple. Your learning style becomes your natural teaching style. If your learning style is different than your child, then we'll have conflict. If we have too much conflict, then we violate that child's sense of safety. So by understanding your learning style, your child's learning style, then we can make those changes and those compromises that allow you and the child to have harmony in the educational process. Through a complete understanding of each person's learning styles, you can maximize the learning potential of your student and to avoid the conflicts, as I mentioned earlier, between the child and the parent. You will become knowledgeable about your child's strengths and goals. And why is that important? Well, my goodness, if you know what their strengths are, you can work with those. At the same time, if you know what their challenges are, then we can work with it. And their goal orientation is very, very important. For instance, let's say that you're talking about a high school student and he wants to be a plumber because he just thinks it's the greatest thing since sliced apple pie. So why would you, knowing that your child's goal is to be a plumber, put him through things that are not necessary, like calculus or trigonometry? Or let's realize at the same time that your child's strengths do not match very well to being a good plumber. So understanding the learning styles, which includes determining the child's strengths and goals, becomes critically important for you to be that good mentor and to facilitate an environment which allows for that ultimate success story when your child is 18, 19 years old and he's prepared for life. You also want to know what your children love to do. And through the learning style assessments that are available, you will know what your children love to do. And if you can do that, then we can convert those hobbies and those interests into areas of strength and goal orientation for your child as well. Then we're also going to be in a position where we can very simply watch your children become eager, self-directed learners. And that is what we really want to have. Create within your child the ability to teach themselves and to love learning. And if you understand learning styles, then guess what? It just becomes that much easier. So let's get into the 5 aspects of learning styles. 1, we have dispositions. Now, what's a disposition? Well, those are things that are like a learning personality. For instance, let's say you have a child who is artistic, very creative. Well, that dispositional learning component is a child who tends to be, let's say, daydreams a lot, gets lost in time. And if you don't understand that, then we get into the point where, oh, they daydream, therefore their attention deficit. No, it's not because they're attention deficit. It's because that's their natural disposition. And where we have conflict is if, for instance, the parent is what we call a producer, a very organized, structured person. They like lists. They like to check off things. They like to know, what am I doing tomorrow before they go to bed tonight? And this is the perfect storm if you're not careful, because if you, being organized, have a child who's creative and tends to be late at times and tends to daydream, that frustrates you. And so you start having that conflict. But if you understand the fact that your creative child has these certain dispositional behaviors, then we can work together, make the compromises, and have that harmony which doesn't violate that sense of security and safety for the child. We also get into modalities. Now, this is where most people would say, oh, I'm kinesthetic, I'm visual, I'm auditory. Well, we take those modalities and we even split it up into subcategories. For instance, you can be visual, but are you visual picture or are you visual print? And that makes a big difference. That separates the people who like to get their instruction through a video presentation or a movie versus the person who likes to read the book or read the owner's manual of a particular barbecue or bicycle you're trying to put together. And it's really important because we can gain a lot of insight through that more detailed analysis of modalities. We also like to talk about environment. And you're going, environment? What's that? Well, that's the area of life. For instance, do you like natural light? Or do you like incandescent lights, fluorescent light? Do you like the temperature to be warm or cold? When is your high energy point? When is your low energy point? When do you like windows open or windows closed? Do you like to lie on the floor or sit at a chair? These are all the different things that are part of the environmental considerations when we determine how a person best likes to learn. Let's talk about number 4, interests. Interests are the things that occupy your mind, that you find favor with, things that you are, for no better term, interested in. If we know these things, then we can use those areas of interest to accentuate or be involved in the teaching of various subjects. For instance, my daughter had a phenomenal interest in aviation. She loved airplanes and she wanted to be a pilot. That was her goal, and she loved anything with aviation. So my wife and I, Miss Carolyn and I, we integrated aviation into almost everything that she went through. History, art, math, science, because she was interested in aviation, and because we integrated aviation into all the subject matters, then she was more apt to want to learn those various subjects better because of her interest in aviation. And then talents. That's the area of life where we identify things that come easy to a person. For instance, some people find it easy to be artistic, or they find it easy to understand math, or they find it easily to write. These are talents that you would have. If we find that you struggle with understanding how to ride a bicycle, or struggle with how to write, or struggle with how to do math, then that gives us insights as parent teachers as to, well, we got to treat this subject matter a little bit differently because the talent is not there to make it easier. So the learning styles, and this is a very quick overview. I will be doing a separate seminar strictly on learning styles, and that will be probably an hour and a half, 2-hour presentation, but it's so important. And if you go to any of the homeschool conventions we speak at, and if you see we're speaking on learning styles, man, grab onto it because it's so important to know. Alrighty, again, learning styles, one of the most important things that you should become very knowledgeable on to help you become that wonderful parent teacher that we all want to be, because our main objective is to create lifetime learners that love to learn, and we want to produce that harmony within the family so that everybody's happy and that sense of security is intact and there's no other worries to get in the way of being that perfect homeschool parent. Okie dokie. We'll be getting into homeschool styles here in a second. Well, now that you've decided that you want to homeschool because you are, one, qualified, two, you know the reasons why, and you have discovered possibly the choice of the style of homeschooling, let's talk about where the rubber hits the road, and that is what kind of homeschool style do you want to be, or in other words, what kind of curriculum do you want to have? We're going to go from top to bottom, from mostly structured to a more relaxed approach. Your first option up there, school at home textbook workbook. Okay, that's designed for probably short-term homeschoolers who want to get back into the school system eventually, or classroom. Also, students or children who like to check things off. The workbook works out extremely well. They get a sense of accomplishment, and it's a good, for no better term, if you're using other types of curriculum, it becomes a good babysitter when you need to have one to give the child something to do with some spare time. The textbook approach, of course, you're familiar with because that's what you used most likely, unless you are a homeschool child as a child. The textbook is chapters of thousands of bits of information. It's school at home for the most part. And now with Common Core, the textbook approach requires a tad bit more investigation, especially if you're not going to return to the school system, because Common Core is not your best friend at all, in my personal opinion. Okay, let's go next to Charlotte Mason. Charlotte Mason was an educator back in the late 1800s and came across a style of teaching, even though she never had children. But her idea was to provide what we call real-life learning. Instead of going with textbooks entirely, let's talk about field trips. Let's talk about getting out and getting your hands dirty, so to speak, reading what she calls living books, books that are exciting, about real people, real things. With Charlotte Mason, the library becomes a phenomenal best friend. Not quite as structured as the textbook workbook approach. A little bit more fun, I believe, a little bit more relaxed. The classical approach is based on the principles that age equals one of four different levels of learning, stages, if you would, going from the very basics to the rhetoric stage, where you can get out there and teach whatever you care to learn. Delayed academics, a very interesting approach. Dr. Raymond Moore did his research. He was a professional educator, a past superintendent of education, and as well as a researcher. He came up with the concept that is shared by many Northern European countries, that let's not start the kids out too early. When you look at academic preparedness, not all kids are ready to learn at age 3, 4, and 5 how to read. There is a thing called integrated maturity. That's when all of your senses come together and can work as one team. And he approaches things from that perspective. We used academic or delayed academics primarily, with other forms as well. To give you an example, my daughter, who's the pilot, did not learn to read until she was 8. And my daughter, who's the theologian, did not learn to read until she was about 10 and a half. But it did not hurt them, because they both have their college degrees. They both are very successful in their chosen pathways. Next comes a very misunderstood concept called unschooling. And what a lot of people think about with unschooling is your kids hang around all day and just play and do nothing. But what it is just a rather more relaxed form of schooling that tends to be child interest directed. If your child is interested in something, why not go ahead and allow them to follow their passion, follow what they're interested in, and throw in a little bit of formality if you have to. But overall, it is probably the most relaxed form of homeschooling. But it's important to understand that you have to not misunderstand unschooling, because a lot of people who are unschooling are also on parenting. And in my personal opinion, the unparenting side is not the best way to go through trying to teach your kids how to navigate life. But we used an element of unschooling because we did not sit down with a prescribed curriculum, a structured curriculum where at 8 o'clock you're doing math, at 9 o'clock you're doing English, at 11 o'clock you can have lunch. We did not do that. Our lifestyle was not more on the school at home side, not at all. But we were basically a eclectic approach which combined some of the best of all the top. I have one daughter who does like workbooks. So we used workbooks, but in more of a delayed academic and unschooling environment. But generally speaking, you're going to fall into some of these categories. But what's important is to realize that you don't necessarily have to choose one and just do it exclusively. You can really become that eclectic homeschooler. Discover what is exciting for you, exciting for your kids, and works for your family and your budget. Now, you'll see in the yellow, we have the thing called the game curriculum, which is something that my daughter and my wife put together. And it takes games and activities, and you can learn all kinds of things in all subject matters throughout all grades of school. And we put together a curriculum at gamecurriculum.com, which will give you ideas how to use games to supplement, if not use exclusively, especially in the elementary days, topics to the point where you become very proficient, if not be able to teach. The game curriculum has some quite interesting attributes that you might be interested in. But the important part is that choosing a curriculum is a highly personal choice. And do not, whatever you do, do not go to a convention and buy the first big package that there is. But just really get involved in learning about the different forms of curriculum. And the next following slides will get into how to choose a curriculum that will be best for you. Okay, how do I choose a curriculum? Well, creating a curriculum is a very personal endeavor, like I said just a few minutes ago. Unlike a classroom or a charter maybe, where the curriculum is determined by the district, you as a homeschooler, particularly in the private sector, can customize the curriculum to fit your needs. Not what the school wants, not what grandpa wants, not what your neighbor wants, but what you feel is best for your child and best for your family. Considerations that you want to take into serious research is how long will you homeschool? If you're going to homeschool for the short term, let's say you want Johnny to mature a little bit longer, a little bit better, and you're going to go back into the classroom in a year or two, you probably want to stay with more of a school at home option because you want to be sure that he can slip right back into the school and what the school considers to be the proper place for let's say a 10-year-old. What is your budget like? You can homeschool for as little as you want, or you can spend hundreds, if not $1,000 or more per student buying big package curriculums. Do not destroy the budget, because budgetary difficulties can affect how the parents feel. And if dad gets upset because he's the major financial support system in most cases, it's going to cause conflict, and we don't want that. Because if you have family conflict, then you have a less happy homeschool result. So really take into consideration your budget. Here's what I ask every student from about age 12 and up. Where will your student be at age 25? If they got a hankering to be a doctor or a lawyer, a nuclear engineer, that's going to dictate a specific academic direction that will be different than if your child wants to be a plumber, an electrician, take over family business. So instead of spinning your wheels and wasting time, look at where your child, not what you want your child to be, but what does your child want to be at age 25? Hopefully, by the time they're 15 or so, they have a clear vision as to where they would like to be. Then you can create a curriculum based upon that concept. Do not think that everybody has to go to college. I believe now that college is becoming a bad investment. It's way too expensive for what you may achieve in 4 to 6 years. But again, at 25, where will your student be? What are the learning styles? We will be having a complete learning style seminar up in the near future. Pay attention to the learning styles. That's really important. Why are you homeschooling? That you have to address that issue. If you're homeschooling for building character, you'll approach it differently than if you're homeschooling to create the next president of a major corporation. Take in consideration family values, family health, finances, but find out why you are homeschooling. Congratulations. You now know that you're qualified, that you want to, and you have the curriculum now all figured out to start your homeschool journey. Now, with anything you do in real life, especially something new, you'll come across a point where you have questions, where you need to have just a little bit of help. That would be really awesome to have. It's no different with the homeschool journey that you're going to become part of. There'll be a point in the future where you go, oh my goodness, what do I do now? Or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm not sure about this particular field trip or this particular curriculum. That's where it's really good to be part of a support system. Well, in the state of California, we have 3 statewide organizations. Let's start out with the granddaddy of them all, and that's the Christian Home Educators Association. They're the oldest association and our largest. They come from a Christian perspective and always have been, and always will be. You can go to the convention, and there are some phenomenal speakers, as well as the biggest vendor hall that's in the state. On the secular side, we have HSC, which is the Homeschool Association of California. They come from a very strong secular homeschool perspective, whereas CHIA comes from a very strong Christian perspective. And smack in the middle is the third organization that says we're not going to get involved in the faith, we're not going to get involved in the secular side without paying attention to the faith people. And so CHN was formed. It's the newest and youngest of the organizations. I am one of the co-founders of the California Homeschool Network, and I'm proud to be part of CHN, which is right in the middle, and we just work with homeschool issues. So I encourage you to join at least one, if not 2, of the state associations. And the reason that you should join is that these 3 organizations are extremely important in following legislation and trying to influence legislation to keep the homeschool laws in California the way they are, which are pretty good. Every state has a homeschool law. Every state have state associations. So if you're not part of California, be sure to look up the private state associations. I'm not talking about associations developed by charters or by the state Department of Education. These are all privately run organizations. All of them are volunteer oriented. The national association that I would like to discuss would be the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. It is, I believe, one of the best insurance policies you can have for a very nominal price, I think around $125. You join HSLDA, and that's an annual fee, of course, and they will provide you with unlimited legal advice on homeschool issues. But if it's got to do with homeschool issues, and those can range from anything from a bad complaint, you got a social services issue coming down, or you're a high school graduate, you want to go to college, and this particular college is saying, well, we don't accept homeschoolers. HSLDA will help you in that whole wide spectrum. Well worth the annual fee. That's great for the national and state associations. What about our local associations? Why are they important? Because the local associations are going to be the people that you can see on a daily basis. Let's start with park days. Park days are a phenomenal place for you to meet other homeschool parents and your kids, other homeschool kids. Same with support groups. Very, very, very important. And support groups are a group of parents that get together to support each other. Now, with both park days and support groups, you're going to have different personalities. It's like people. When you have a group of people, the group kind of forms its own personality. And it might be totally different than a park group 4 blocks away. Same with the state associations. We each have our own personality. So be sure that that support group or that park day meets your requirements on what you're looking for in homeschooling and come pretty close to matching your worldview. Yahoo groups have become fantastic sources of camaraderie and support. There are literally thousands of homeschool groups across the country via the Yahoo groups, and they can be very specific. It might be a homeschool hiking club. It might be a kindergarten pre-K support group that you'll find on Yahoo. So definitely check out Yahoo and other internet sources. Friends are going to be one of your tickets to success. Everything in life is nicer with friends around, especially trusted friends that you can relate to, you can confide in. So don't forget your friends. Now, if you have friends that are negative, just be sure that those negative time periods with your friends do not steal your dream. Keep your dream alive and forgive them for their naivety in respect to homeschool. And don't forget, some of your homeschool friends might be saying, oh, what a horrible idea. But they're saying that because you have the honor and privilege to stay home. Your friend has to work. And so therefore, she knows she's missing out with some great times with her children. So she's feeling bad, but she'll take it out on you because you have the gift and she doesn't. Okay, the PSP, that's the private satellite program. Awesome, awesome place for support again, because they are totally in tune with you as a family, and your PSP leader should have an intimate knowledge of you and your kids, what's going on. Field trips, oh yes, that's a fantastic place to meet new parent friends. And again, your kids will be with other kids on field trips. We highly, highly support field trips. It's part of the exploratory component I discussed earlier. And it's so important that my PSP, we scheduled 50 field trips last year. Not that every family went to every field trip, but we have such a great variety, and the kids and the parents thoroughly enjoy it. So don't forget the field trips. Last, but not the only last one, but the last one for my list today, is Starbucks. There's something about Starbucks that I kind of like. I don't spend a lot of time there because I'm too busy, but when I do go in, I see these little, particularly young adult college kids, they're sitting there talking, they're just having a good time, and there seems to be sort of an academic environment that's fascinating to me. So reward one of your kids or all your kids and spend time with them and take them to a Starbucks moment. And you can talk about a book that you're reading with them, or you can talk about how their progress is going. It's a great, wonderful time to really take inventory of where your kid is going on. And because it's a public place, it's really great because people tend to be more in control of emotions. And so you can really have some really deep, fun discussions and also enjoy their variety of the concoctions they make. All right, that should do well for support. All I can say is please do yourself a favor and become connected with at least one or two state associations. Definitely get checked in with HSLDA and participate in the local associations, ranging from park days to Starbucks. All righty, on to the next subject. Now comes the fun part. What kind of homeschool opportunities do you really have? Now remember, if you're coming from the classroom environment, the opportunities are limited. You have class time, recess, lunch, class time. The homeschool opportunities that you have, you don't have to be doing class time, break, class time. You can participate in so many different areas that I just love. Again, this goes to my concept of exploration. Let's start out with the field trips. We talked about that in the last session. It is imperative. It is highly recommended that you go on as many field trips as you can with your kids. Now, if you don't have the connection with a PSP or a support group, you can always get, at least for the state of California, Southern California, a book written by Susan Peterson called Fun Places Book. This is a wealth of information, and it gives you the information of cost, purpose, how long it takes, what it does, geographical location. It is awesome. Again, park days, another wonderful opportunity for you that we discussed earlier. Let's go to sports. A lot of kids, especially in our PSP, they're semi-pro or they're playing club, which requires sometimes travel. And being a homeschool student definitely puts you into a very, very sweet position. There are a lot of activities out there. One of my teachers is a professional George Washington. And if you look at his activity schedule, he does a lot of historical reenactments. What a great way to really try to live what it was like during the Civil War, the American Revolution, the colonial period. There are really a whole lot of great activities that can reinforce the academic portion of your homeschool journey. Volunteer opportunities, oh my goodness. I know it's sometimes difficult now with more regulation, but I know my girls, when they were like 10 and 12, they were actually volunteering at a bookstore, and they learned so much about business, customer relations, and they got to the point where they started doing the ordering, and pretty much managing that particularly privately owned bookstore. It was owned by an elderly lady, and she was thrilled to have the opportunity to have my girls support her and help her. The volunteer opportunities can be immense. You can do social service type of things. You can work with the Red Cross, maybe with the Pound, you name it. The museums, sometimes when the kids are older, they can be working there. So always look around for volunteer opportunities. Music and the arts and theater. Again, we have kids who are professionally involved in these areas, and being a homeschooled person puts you at a professional advantage because you can go to all your calls and callbacks during the day. The average classroom educated child, particularly in the public school system, really cannot do that. The theater is an immense place to have fun. The arts, you can perfect your particular art style or your music. So really look into those areas. Concurrent enrollment, what is that? That is where your child can actually, at 15, 16, 17, sometimes younger, attend community college. When your child takes a college-level course, not a makeup course or what we call dum-dum classes, the remediated classes, but for high school or for college-level course taken, your child will pick up 1 full year of academic credit, and it goes into a 5-point grading scale. This is how so many kids sometimes get those 4-point plus GPAs. Concurrent enrollment is an awesome way to really kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We have had at our graduations children, young adults, high school graduates, with their AA degree and their high school diploma at the same time. My youngest graduate ever with an AA and high school diploma was a 12-year-old, a rather intelligent 12-year-old, but again, a 12-year-old. Small business, what a way to understand real life. We have a deal here at our resource center that if a child develops their own business and they want to sell something, they can do it in my store, take 0 deductions, they get 100% of the proceeds, and it really allows them to understand budgeting, marketing, sales, customer personalities, product research. Very, very good. And if you do it correctly, there's even a possibility to get high school credit for doing the small businesses. Let's look at career exploration. One of the dangers of being young, we look at particular occupations through the lens of maybe a TV show or kind of a fantasy approach to how that job might be, or they're not even sure what they want to do, but through programs in career exploration, we can find out, is the reality equal to the fantasy, or just to introduce them to a career opportunity. It's a very important and awesome benefit to homeschooling. Several organizations that are involved is CAP, it's the Civil Air Patrol. It gives young people a chance to explore aviation and get experience there. Young Eagles is a program in Southern California where young people can go to a particular airport and they can actually ride up in an airplane and in some cases get a little bit of stick time at no cost to the parent. Awesome, awesome. My daughter went to Young Eagles, flew an airplane. It just cemented her desire to get into aviation, and she became a pilot. Space Camp, Aviation Challenge. My daughter, who's the pilot, went to Aviation Challenge in Huntsville, Alabama for 2 summers. Had a blast. Apprenticeships. Oh my goodness. What a way to really get some kind of feel. And yeah, it gets a little bit difficult for the younger kids, but if you get a friend that has a business, or they can, through volunteering, they can do apprenticeships. What a great way to get the experiences you want. LA Opera Prep, in our case, was phenomenal. We've had kids participate in that, ended up going into the theater business. You name it. There are so many wonderful opportunities. Now, clubs is another great way to expand your horizons and to maybe even zero in on some areas of your life that you want to improve in. And we have Awana, American Heritage Girls, Pioneers, Scouting. There are a lot of different clubs of that nature, not to mention sports clubs and athletic clubs. Get the kids involved. These are very, very good for creating that well-rounded individual. Contests, what a way to go. And if your child is talented, let's say in essays or art, dance, by all means participate. Our LA County Fair, back in the day, my girls made a lot of money because they used to give out cash prizes for first and second place. So it worked out real good for my girls. And then I know for EIE, the geography bee, we've had 3 of our students go to the state championship. And that means only the top 100 kids in the state. And that's a lot of people in California. We've had 3 times where one of our kids made it to the top, to go to the state level. What a great experience that was. Well, that is a very good review of opportunities. Again, opportunities are what you make it, and you can discover other opportunities way beyond this list. This list is nothing but a recommendation or a little teaser to help you determine what you can do with your children on those time periods where you really don't want to do academics 24/7. Here's part of your opportunities. Okay, on to the next. Let's spend a couple of seconds here, a couple minutes actually, on special needs. One of the sad or challenging realities of our modern life is, for whatever reasons, we're seeing a higher number of special needs kids, particularly in the area of autism or the autistic spectrum. And what's important to understand that I believe within the homeschool community, the special needs kids have a much better chance. Let me explain. Most classroom environments are very structured, and in many cases, it's overwhelming for special needs. Sometimes they will have all the special needs in one classroom, and the opportunities for cross-socialization and interaction with other people can be limited. Within the homeschool community, I believe that the children, the special needs kids, will be offered a much more flexible schedule that will not overwhelm. They will have interaction with other people, depending upon the severity of the handicap. But for the majority of our kids that are within the handicapped community, particularly in the spectrum kids, we've had wonderful success in having these kids interact with our, quote, regular, normal people, unquote. That our teens and our kids, they have, I think, a much more healthier respect and honor for our special needs families. We've had kids come in with special needs and on their own timetable, if you would, have succeeded. They've gotten their high school diplomas and they can do some wonderful things with their life. If you're lucky, like we are, we have had the opportunity to receive special training, and in our case, through Texas Christian University, to work with all types of special needs students. We have a wonderful video library that's available for families to come in, particularly the parents to come in and watch some very instructional ideas on how to get your special needs kid through life, differentiating between the behavior of the special need versus just normal teenage growing up. We're able to differentiate between the two, and I believe that we can provide a lot of support. Now, one of the issues might be that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you may either lose your IEP or choose to drop your IEP. That becomes a issue that you have to deal with as a family. We find that in some cases we're able to work with the family and not necessarily have to deal with the IEP. Our success rate is pretty good, in fact, awesome, and we've had our normal kids just really enjoy some of our special needs kids. They've all benefited. I mean, it's a true mutual benefit to the interaction. And that should do it for now for special needs. This is a subject that can really get down to some very serious discussion. But again, special needs, we welcome you. And the homeschool community welcomes you to be part of real life. Well, now comes the big question. After homeschooling, what happens? Well, believe it or not, it's amazing the opportunities afforded to properly homeschooled students. And I use the term properly homeschooled all the time. If you're an isolationist homeschooler, I'm afraid you're providing your family with a disadvantage in life. If you are a homeschooler participating in support groups, park days, field trips, a lot of exploring, stay home and do the academics, your children will do very well. In fact, up until now, our students, I'm talking about the homeschool community in general, they tend to test better. They tend to do better in college because most homeschool kids have the capability of teaching themselves, a great gift. Where do our graduates go? Well, we have had many of our graduates go into the military, particularly the Marines, and we're very happy to hear that so far they've all come back whole and come back, period, and we're very proud of that and very happy about that. But the military has become a great place for many of our young grads, both the ladies and the guys. Employment, you can go right into the workforce. Employers like homeschoolers as well because they're better behaved. They have in most cases, statistically speaking, they have a better organizational and dedication to the job attitude. Entrepreneurship, oh my goodness. Homeschool kids can become business people. And it's amazing how many of our young people, they have their own businesses and they do quite well with them in many cases. The community college, that's a natural transition place for students who want to go to college, particularly a four-year school. And through the community college, you can go during the high school years through the concurrent enrollment program, or you can just go right there after you get your high school diploma and save a lot of money. And community college also becomes a great exploratory experience where you can kind of get some exposure to various vocations and professions. And if you want to spend the money, the college and universities are a wonderful opportunity for homeschool kids. And again, many colleges and universities at the state level and whatnot, they have really appreciated the caliber of quality of long-term homeschooled kids to the point where many of them have special divisions within their enrollment office, their admissions office, to actively solicit homeschool kids. In the state of California, University of California, Riverside has a very, very positive program for homeschool kids. Many of the private schools love homeschool kids. Both my girls did end up in college. They did very well. Believe me, it's phenomenal, the opportunities that your kids have. Just choose the option that is their option, not necessarily your option, Mr. and Mrs. Parent, but what is it that the kids want to do? Because the work length, the work lifespan now is going to be 50 years. So you might as well love what you do. So again, the after homeschooling provides awesome, awesome, awesome opportunities. All righty. Thank you very much for watching this video. I'm hoping that you have received a lot of good information allowing you to make the right choice. We highly recommend the educational freedom that comes with homeschooling. And with the current COVID-19 scenario, this becomes an excellent option for you, especially if you are a stay-at-home parent. Again, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'm going to have at the end of this video, after this little segment, a slide with some important website information or some URLs. Okay, talk to you at the next video.